The warm glow of string lights flickered against the brick walls of Le Jardin Brasserie, but the mood at our table was anything but charming. I sat quietly in a linen jacket and clay-flecked boots, watching my family toast my father's 60th birthday, while subtly tearing apart my life, one comment at a time. I'm Camille Foster, though lately my family just calls me the creative one who never quite landed. At 34, I was the letdown who'd pursued ceramics instead of law, who lived in a studio loft in downtown Denver rather than a gated community, who cycled to shows instead of leasing luxury SUVs, the outlier who crafted abstract installations that no one in my family understood, or tried to. So, Camille, my cousin Brittany said sweetly, spearing her heirloom salad, still doing that clay hobby? Ceramics, I corrected with a smile, sipping sparkling water. The rose was supposedly too pricey for me, judging by the glances. Across from me, my older brother Andrew leaned back smugly. His cybersecurity firm had just landed a defense contract, and he'd made sure everyone knew it. Still molding mud? He laughed. You ever think of growing up and doing something useful? Mom reached over to squeeze my hand. Sweetheart, we just want what's best for you. Andrew says they're hiring entry-level analysts. Art isn't a stepping stone, I said quietly. It's what I do. Dad scoffed. Camille, you're 34. Don't you think it's time to grow out of this phase? Brittany chimed in. You live in that warehouse district, right? Isn't it dangerous? Andrew laughed. What's your income these days? Enough to buy a real chair? I just smiled. They had no idea about the commissions, the Paris residency, or the collector who'd flown in from Dubai last week. Silence was safer than watching them try to monetize my dreams. The Foster name still carries weight in this city, Dad said, his voice slipping into the same lecture tone he used when I was 12. Your grandfather helped build Denver's business foundation, real work, smart choices, tangible returns. I thought about the stone and metal installation I'd completed just last week, already sold to a private collector in Switzerland for more than Andrew's annual take-home, or the 5-figure commissions drying in my studio, or the gallery in Montmartre still waiting on my answer. You can still turn this around, Brittany said gently, thinking she sounded supportive. It's never too late to get serious. Andrew glanced at his watch with the kind of flair only a man with a new bonus check displays. Speaking of serious, I just onboarded a new client. Foster Tech Solutions, heard of them? I nearly coughed into my sparkling water. Foster Tech Solutions was one of my longest-standing clients, though no one had connected me to them. I'd been designing centerpiece sculptures for their innovation campus for 6 months, each piece netting more than Andrew's last quarterly earnings. Can't say I have, I said calmly. Well, not really your scene, Andrew said with a smug grin. CEO's a big deal. Leo Foster. Makes the Forbes list every year. The irony tasted better than the duck confit. Leo and I had been discussing modernism, legacy, and jazz over espresso since spring. He didn't know Andrew was my brother, yet, I'm sure he's lucky to have you on board, I said lightly. Mom leaned in, whispering like she was matchmaking royalty. Andrew, didn't you say Mr. Foster is single? Maybe Camille could meet him. Might inspire her to get serious about life. I nearly laughed. Leo and I had dinner reservations next Tuesday. It wouldn't be the first. Mom, Andrew said, shaking his head. Leo Foster doesn't date artists. He surrounds himself with achievers. Dad nodded. People who build legacies, not doodlers. Brittany added, you could always audit a few business courses just to learn how to market yourself better. I was just about to respond when the restaurant's entrance swung open with graceful urgency. A familiar figure stepped in, and instantly the energy shifted. Leo Foster, tech mogul, global investor, and serious patron of the arts, strode into Les Jardins Brasserie like he'd commissioned the architecture himself. Knowing his reach, he probably had. His gaze swept the room and then locked on me. His expression shifted to something bright and unmistakably warm. Camille, he called out, his voice smooth and resonant. cutting cleanly through the clatter of dishes and low murmurs. My favorite sculptor. Every head turned, every conversation halted. The maitre d' practically sprinted to Leo's side, bowing, murmuring welcomes as he guided him toward our table. My family sat frozen, forks suspended midair, as one of the most powerful men in the country approached like we were old friends. Because we were. Leo reached our table and without hesitation leaned down to kiss my cheek. I hoped I'd run into you, ready to finalize the Paris Commission, you know, the one pushing $50 million 0 cents. Andrew's fork slipped from his hand and clattered loudly onto his plate. Leo, I said, warmly rising to greet him properly. What a surprise. I'm just here for a family celebration. Family? Even better. Leo turned toward my stunned relatives, his charisma dialed high. I'm Leo Foster. Camille's been designing a breathtaking series for our headquarters, completely redefining public art. Brilliant, really. Mom blinked rapidly. Dad's hand gripped his wine glass like it might save him. Brittany looked 2 heartbeats from passing out. Andrew, ever the opportunist, sprang up. Mr. Foster, Andrew Foster, Foster Cyber Defense. We spoke yesterday about your enterprise integration audit. Leo offered a brief, polite nod. Ah, yes. The analyst. Then, back to me. Camille, the Tokyo Committee is thrilled. The installation's already being promoted by the Cultural Ministry. Tokyo, Mom whispered. 50 million? Dad choked. And didn't I hear the Museum d'Art Moderne is hosting your retrospective next year? Leo added with a wink. You must be so proud of her global acclaim. If you're as stunned as Camille's family, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens after this lunch will leave them even more speechless. The silence at our table was suffocating. Around us, murmurs rose and phones discreetly appeared, capturing the unexpected spectacle at table 7. The billionaire art collector, casually dining with the daughter once dismissed as a disappointment. Mind if I join you for a moment? Leo asked, though he was already signaling the server for an extra chair. Meeting the family behind brilliance is always a privilege. He settled in with practiced charm, unfolding his napkin. Across from me, Andrew looked like he'd seen a ghost. Just minutes earlier, he was mocking my mud molding. Now he sat across from a man, praising my work, in numbers none of them had ever earned. So, Leo began, smiling as if we were old friends, which we were. Tell me, what was it like watching Camille's artistry evolve over the years? Surely you have wonderful memories of her early pieces. Mom blinked rapidly. Well, she was always very creative. Creative? Leo echoed with delight. What an understatement. Did you know her last piece at Sotheby's sold for $12 million 0 cents? The bidding was fierce. Brittany made a strangled sound. Andrew looked physically ill. 12 million? Dad stammered. For one piece, yes, Leo confirmed, but that's modest for Camille's portfolio. The sculpture I acquired last spring? Triple it in value already. She's the best investment I've ever made. He turned toward Andrew with polite interest. You're in finance, right? Must be gratifying to see such impressive ROI in the family. Andrew's lips parted, but no words came. I was just mentioning your Foster Tech account, I said sweetly. Andrew was quite proud to land such a major client. Leo's smile turned razor thin. Yes, well, we'll see how that relationship holds. I value competence above all else. Andrew's expression drained of color. Emile, Leo continued, turning back to me. I didn't mean to interrupt your family's celebration, but I couldn't wait to share. Your installation proposal for the Venice Biennale has been accepted. You'll represent the U.S. Pavilion. Andrew's jaw dropped. The Venice Biennale, in the art world that was the Olympics, and I had just won gold. It was the kind of recognition that cemented artistic legacies. That's incredible news, I said warmly, though I'll need to wrap up the Foster Tech series first. Naturally, Leo replied. Art deserves patience. He glanced around at my family, still stunned and speechless. I assume you'll all be attending Camille's opening in Venice? It's no small thing, representing the United States at the Biennale. Mom nodded too quickly, though I doubted she even knew what the Venice Biennale was. Leo's phone buzzed on the table. He checked it, then gave a regretful smile. I need to take this. Zurich market's always dramatic after midnight, but Thursday dinner? He leaned in to kiss my cheek again. I'll have Clara book Lou Bernardine. Perfect, I said. He shook hands around the table, pausing at Andrew. Pleasure meeting you all. Andrew, I'll review those quarterly figures. Accuracy matters, especially in this economy. Andrew gave a strained smile. As Leo departed, trailing servers' whispers and not-so-subtle stares, our table sat suspended in silence. Even the waiter, refilling our water glasses, moved with unusual reverence. Mom finally spoke. Camille, 50 million? That's just one commission, I replied gently. There are others. The art world is surprisingly generous once you reach a certain altitude. Dad looked dazed. Venice Biennale? Think of it like the Olympics for contemporary art, I said, except fewer flags, more marble. Brittany stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. You're famous? In art circles, yes. Art news, Frieze, Times reviews, I've got pieces in 5 museums. Andrew finally whispered, Why didn't you ever tell us? I looked at him, considering. Would you have believed me, or would you have told me to stop fantasizing? The silence answered for them. When I had my first solo show, you all skipped it for Andrew's promotion party. When I sold my first 6-figure piece, Dad called it beginner's luck. When the Times called me a generational sculptor, Mom said not to let it go to my head. They looked away, ashamed. And that warehouse loft? You're all so worried about, I added. I own the whole building. Current value, around $8 million. The van you think is unsafe? I said quietly. It's a custom-built transport vehicle for museum-grade artwork. It costs more than Andrew's BMW. Andrew flinched. I don't live like this because I can't afford more. I live this way because it aligns with my work and my values. I don't need a mansion to prove success. Mom reached across the table, eyes glistening. Sweetheart, we didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked, I replied. You never came to a single opening. Never asked about my pieces, my clients, or what I was trying to build. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We thought we were being realistic. No, you thought you were being superior, I said gently. There's a difference. The waiter approached with dessert menus, but no one looked at them. The energy at our table had shifted. I saw it in their eyes. The quiet reevaluation, the rewiring of old assumptions. The commission Leo mentioned, Brittany asked softly. Is that really $50 million, 0 cents? Yes, I said, 7 installations. It's a 3-year project that will turn Foster Tech's HQ into a cultural landmark. Mom hesitated. And you and Leo, friends, collaborators. He's one of the most insightful art patrons I've met. We align creatively. Andrew finally found his voice. Camille, I owe you an apology. We all do. I studied his face, trying to distinguish sincerity from damage control. Do you, Andrew? Or are you just realizing insulting me might hurt your standing with your client? He flushed. That's not exactly what you mean, I said, calm but direct. And that's fine. Just don't call it family suddenly seeing the light. Call it what it is. Calculation. Mom looked wounded. That's not fair. We love you. I know you do, I replied. But love without respect is still dismissal. I motioned to the waiter. Leo was right. First impressions matter. And you've all made yours about my career very clear. Where are you going? Dad asked as I rose. Back to the studio. That $50 million, 0 cents legacy won't sculpt itself. Andrew reached out, grabbing my arm. Camille, please. Can't we start over? Andrew's voice was quieter now. I looked down at his hand on my sleeve, then met his eyes. Andrew, you've spent the last 5 years mocking my career, my choices, my way of life, and now that you've discovered it's profitable, you want a reset. Do you not see the issue? He let go, clearly rattled. You're not asking to start over because you respect what I do or because you understand the art. You're asking because you're afraid this might cost you your biggest client. The truth hung in the space between us. His silence confirmed everything I needed to know. I pulled out my wallet and set enough cash on the table to cover the entire check, plus a tip large enough to soften the edge of the spectacle we'd just created. "Happy birthday, Mom. I hope the rest of your celebration goes smoothly." As I walked away, I could already hear the whispers starting behind me. Damage control, optics, strategy. They weren't processing who I had become. They were calculating how to respond to my value now that it had a dollar sign attached. Outside, I slid into my paint-splattered transport van and let the moment settle. For years, they'd pitied me. Now, they feared me. Neither reaction reflected who I truly was. My phone buzzed. A message from Leo. "Hope I didn't stir too much family drama. Your brother looked like he'd seen a ghost." I smiled as I typed. "Only the good kind. Thank you for the dramatic timing. Thursday lunch to go over Tokyo?" "Absolutely. And Camille, if Andrew messes up the numbers, he's gone." "He's competent. Don't fire him, at least not for my sake." "You're generous. See you Thursday." I pulled out of the lot and headed toward the studio. 7 sculptures weighed at $50 million, 0 cents worth of vision, legacy, and labor that would outlast any shift in family sentiment. In my rearview mirror, they were still huddled at the table, frantic. Tomorrow the calls would come, maybe an invitation, maybe curiosity. But real relationships aren't built on revelations of wealth. They're built on respect. And that's one currency my family never learned to invest in. Inside, my studio was just as I'd left it. Sunlight streaming through the high windows, sculptures in various stages of completion, design sketches lining the walls like constellations. The scent of metal, clay, and ambition filled the air. This was my real world, not the one my family had tried to steer me away from. My phone buzzed. Andrew's name lit up the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Some bridges don't collapse with flames. They rot slowly from neglect. And once they fall, they can't be rebuilt with late apologies or last-minute admiration. If my family wanted to be part of my life now, they'd have to accept who I've always been, not who I'd become, on their terms. As for me, I had work to do. 7 installations to complete, the Venice Biennale to prepare for, a career that had flourished long before their validation and would continue without it. 3 months later, I stood inside the Foster Tech Global Headquarters as the final piece was placed beneath the atrium's skylight. The sculpture series had become more than art. It was a story, a transformation, a destination. "Extraordinary," Leo murmured beside me, watching the finishing touches fall into place. "You've built something that will inspire people long after we're gone." The lobby now drew artists, critics, architects, and curious minds from around the world. Each sculpture guided them through a journey: technology, humanity, legacy. It was the most meaningful work of my life. "The Venice pieces are coming along," I told him. "I think the U.S. pavilion will surprise people." "I wouldn't miss it," Leo smiled. "Though I imagine your family will want to attend too." He was right. Andrew had called again, so had Mom and Dad. Jessica even asked if her kids could tour the studio. "We'll see," I said. "I'm not holding grudges, I'm just focused." Spoken like a real artist. Visitors wandered the space, eyes wide, minds sparked. Recognition was rewarding, wealth was useful, but this connection, this was everything. After school let out, my phone buzzed. A text from Andrew. Saw the Times article. "Mom wants to have dinner Sunday. No pressure, just us." I paused, then typed back. "Sunday works, but I'm choosing the restaurant." Because if we were going to rebuild anything, it would start in a place that respected creativity. Some victories aren't loud. They're quiet, lasting, and earned. Like proving yourself right. And still leaving the door open. If my story resonated with you, show your support, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and hit subscribe. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated, doubted, ignored? Let this be a reminder. Validation doesn't build value, consistency does. Respect yourself first, and the rest will follow. Keep creating, even when no one's watching.